Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. This is the question and answer session for April 16th. Public Health Director Annette Rodriguez and Dr. Chris Berg will be addressing questions received this week. Please feel free to add your follow-up questions to chat. Today's topics are vaccine locations, effectiveness, and herd immunity. And of course, we have our weekly healthy lifestyle check-in. Dr. Berg, take it away.
All right, thank you, Jason. So, Annette, I was analyzing the latest vaccination data last night, and it looks like there was a bump upwards in the vaccinations this past week. So, I'm assuming that you noticed something, maybe like more people, or you were giving out more vaccines this week than last week. Is that right?
Well, I didn't notice a bump upward. What I noticed was that we had more sites open. So I don't know what happened. I decided that we should be open at every site at the same time to see if that would bring more people in. So while we were open at American Bank Center, we were also open at Richard Fortune Fairgrounds. We were also open at the mall. So we opened this week. Our grand opening was on Tuesday at La Palmera Mall. And we're at the old Charming Charlie's location. And so that's the only thing that I did different, was I tried to be at every location just to see if that would help people to come in and get vaccinated, maybe closer to them. So.
Okay, well, you have confirmation it worked. There's noticeably more vaccinations this past week.
Well, good. I'm glad it did.
All right. Let's go to some questions from the people. Are any local people testing positive after getting the COVID vaccine?
Yes. So some people right after the first. So we think that they actually got infected before they get their first vaccine. And we do have some individuals that have gotten COVID-19 after getting their second vaccine. And it's been more than 2 weeks, so they're considered fully vaccinated. We're still reviewing those breakthroughs at this time. So I don't have enough information to tell you how many there are, but there are definitely some people here locally that have gotten COVID-19 after being vaccinated for it. What I've seen, what I remember, is with the Moderna.
Yeah, and I want to remind everybody that the vaccines are not 100% effective against infection, but at least the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines thus far seem to be 100% effective against fatalities.
Thank you. That's true.
Let's see, following up on that, will the Corpus Christi Nueces County Public Health District keep a record of positive cases who are fully vaccinated, or will this is there some sort of centralized place where this information is being kept, like maybe by the state, or is it only for, say, like scientific or trial studies?
At this time, I don't think that the state has asked us for that information, but we're definitely keeping it. We have a record of it. When they do ask us for it, we will have it to share with them. So we also shared with the bears, and so maybe that's why the state doesn't need it. So that would be considered an adverse reaction if you end up with COVID-19. Even though, like you said, we know that 5% of people are protected even after being completely vaccinated. But what we'd like to see is that they don't have severe illness or that they were not hospitalized. So that's all that I know at this time.
Yeah, and something that I can add on to that with interfacing with the data is that the state is keeping a database of vaccinations, and they're keeping a database of positive tests. And so it's possible to cross-reference those two databases at the state level. It's not possible at my level as just a person in the community. But that information is being recorded, even if it's not being cross-referenced against the between the two databases right now.
The other thing, Dr. Berg, if I could mention, is that sometimes people are going in to have surgery, and so they're getting tested, but they're getting tested for antibodies, and so they're coming out positive, and so they're thinking that they're positive for COVID-19, but that's not the case. They've had the 2 vaccines. You expect them to have antibodies. So just so the community knows, just because you have antibodies doesn't mean that you're positive and asymptomatic. You should have antibodies if you've been vaccinated twice and you've been fully vaccinated.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that maybe we lose sight of sometimes, at least as informed patients. If you've been vaccinated within the past 3 months, and then you can contract symptoms that might be consistent with COVID, the test that you don't want to get is the antibody test, because you're likely test positive just from having been vaccinated. So you want to make sure that the person giving you the test, or the organization giving you the test, knows that you've been vaccinated recently, and that you need a test that can decipher between testing positive because you had the vaccination versus because you have an active COVID infection.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's the latest information on how long each vaccine's effectiveness will last?
So right now for Moderna and Pfizer, it looks like it's right over 6 months, but that's just because it's still a novel virus. So that's about how much we've seen, how far out we've seen, that it is protective. So next month it might be 7 months, and then it might be 8 months. And so we're learning right now kind of at the same time that we've just gotten vaccinated. That's what we're still doing. They call it real world studies, because they're actually looking to see, how many people are getting COVID-19 now that they've been vaccinated. And so they're seeing a really good return, if you will. Basically, a lot of people are very protected, but we need more people to get the protection. If we're ever going to get to herd immunity, we need to have more people come in and get vaccinated. And I think there's still some vaccine hesitancy, and I hope that people will realize that the benefit of the vaccine outweighs the risk of picking up COVID-19.
Yep, definitely. I'll add a little bit onto that, because I've read some scientific publications on how long they think the vaccines will last. So there might be a little bit of speculation here. But based upon, I think first of all, we're all aware that different vaccines have different effectivenesses. And so you have to take these comparisons with caution. But on SARS-CoV-1, which was the virus that came before the present virus, that there's several years of immunity that has been conferred by getting vaccinated for that. So there's some speculation that the same level of duration will be conferred by the new vaccines for SARS-CoV-2. Now, it's two different viruses and it's different vaccines, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. But it looks like there's some long-lasting effects of the vaccine. One of the primary differences, though, is that SARS-CoV-2, is so prevalent that it's mutating rapidly. And I think we've all heard about Pfizer and Moderna talking about booster shots, where they might be updating the mRNA sequences to deal with new variants that might pop up between now and maybe 6 or 12 months from now. So those are some additional considerations that go into the vaccine's effectiveness, is that there's so much COVID out there that it's evolving in ways that might make it more resistant to the present vaccines. But also, just to reiterate, we're definitely a long ways from herd immunity, and we can get there two ways, either by getting infected and recovering, or by getting vaccinated. And the side effects from getting vaccinated are much lower, much less than the side effects from getting COVID. Let's see. With news on the FDA's and CDC's halt on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, what should those who are vaccinated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine keep an eye on?
So, what we saw with the pause was that it was in women, and it was in women between the ages of 18 and 48 years of age. That doesn't mean if you're 49 or 50, it couldn't happen to you, but that was the specific age of these 6 individuals out of almost 7 million J&J vaccines that were given. And so what you would really be keeping an eye out on is like a severe headache. If you're having this severe headache, if you just got your J&J and it's been a week ago, you should be going into the emergency room. Also, this is something that if you don't get migraines all the time, if you're constantly having migraines, then it's probably a migraine. But the other thing is, if you have like leg pain, if you have like excruciating pain, or you notice an unusual swelling in one leg, I would be going into the emergency room and letting them know that you had the J&J vaccine about a week ago. What they saw was that people 6 days to 13 days after being vaccinated were the ones that got these symptoms. And some symptoms actually, look like a stroke. That means that it's an emboli, a clot that goes to the brain. But it could just be in the leg too. You could get a clot. You can get a clot anywhere. You can get a clot in your leg. You can get a clot in your lungs, in your brain. So the symptoms are really massive headache, shortness of breath, or unusual swelling or cramps in your legs or even in your abdomen.
So, Annette, something that I was wondering, going off this, is that blood clots are a side effect of COVID itself. Do they know if there's any connection right now?
What they've said is that they're still really reviewing these. They did this so quickly, and that's why, we applaud the FDA for actually doing, what their job is. But to be able to do it under these circumstances in a pandemic, to find 6 cases and to be able to say these 6 cases are severe enough cases. And we all know there was a fatality, and one is actually, an individual that's still in critical condition. But that they could make this kind of decision. And I think the reason that happened was not only because of the blood clots, but also they noticed that the platelet counts are very low, and that's unusual. And so it's kind of these two in combination, because I know a lot of people say 6 cases out of 7 million, are they going to let J&J, start up again? And they may. If the benefit outweighs the risk, they may say the pause is over, you may start giving J&J, or they may say you can start giving it now to men, or they may say just wait and we'll give you a decision. What we're being told is that we'll have a decision in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. Are there any reports of the same sort of thing happening with Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine?
No, not that we've seen. We have seen similar reports, but they're in the AstraZeneca, in the European countries and stuff, and so, but not with Moderna or Pfizer at this time.
Right. And just for our audience, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson vaccines, they're similar in the way that they were constituted and created, and they're quite different from the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Also, a much larger number of people have been vaccinated with Pfizer and Moderna than with Johnson & Johnson. And so just because maybe there were some issues with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, a very small proportion of people, it sounds like 1 in a million or so, there's been no reports of those issues with Pfizer or Moderna in a much larger sample size of people.
Right, right. I think the other important thing is that, like you said, the Pfizer and the Moderna are both mRNAs, which is a new technology for making vaccines, and the others, the J&J and the AstraZeneca are the adenoviral vectors, and so one is a chimpanzee and one is a human. So different, very different. You can't compare and say I'm comparing, J&J to Moderna and they're the same thing, because they're not the same thing at all. They're very different vaccines.
Yep, exactly. And just to combat another conspiracy theory out there, messenger RNA vaccines, while being new to deploying at this scale, they've been in development for several decades. And so it's not like it's some brand new experimental procedure or something. It's, a well documented and understood process. Right up to the point where, I don't know if people are aware of this, but it's kind of like Italian salad dressing, this vaccine, where you have to put oil in there and shake it up, and you get the messenger RNA inside the droplets of oil in your Italian salad dressing, and that prevents your body from digesting the messenger RNA or metabolizing it before it can hit its target spot and be effective. So there's a fun fact for everybody out there.
The conspiracy theory that is in our Italian dressing?
Well, the conspiracy theory was that it's brand new and we don't really understand it, and that's not the case at all.
No,
but
for over 10 years, like you said, yeah.
Maybe if you like Italian salad dressing, you'll love the vaccine. And who doesn't like Italian salad dressing? All right, so next question. I just lost my place there. I think we addressed the next question, so I'll move on from there. What is truly considered an adverse reaction to a vaccine versus common side effects?
That's a great question, because a lot of people just think, if my arm's really red or it got a big bump, is that an adverse reaction? Should I report it? The answer is no. That's just your immune system actually working very well. So I remember when I had smallpox, I had it oozing out of my arm, and the doctor was like, "This is a good immune system." I was like, "Wow, it hurts." So, but an adverse reaction for a COVID vaccine would be something that actually sent you to the hospital. So you were having a lot of shortness of breath, and you couldn't breathe anymore, and you needed to go to the hospital. That would be an adverse reaction. Also, an immediate reaction is considered an adverse reaction with these COVID vaccines. So an immediate reaction within 4 hours, you break out in hives all over your body within 4 hours of getting vaccinated. That's considered an adverse reaction, and you should not get your second dose. Or if you have shortness of breath within the 4 hours of getting COVID-19 vaccinated, and that's not just because you had anxiety, like, oh my God, I'm so nervous about getting the shot that you feel like you can't breathe. It's not that kind of, you're actually short of breath. And then actually wheezing. So any type of wheezing, shortness of breath, that's considered an immediate, non-severe allergic reaction, but an adverse reaction, if it makes any sense. So within 4 hours, it's not the next day. If you broke out in a rash the next day, that's not considered an adverse reaction. It's within, guess I need to move around.
Looks like you went into witness protection there.
It's within 4 hours of being vaccinated. So all the other ones, if you have a headache or if you've got fever, if you've got chills, that's just a normal response. Your body's doing what it should be doing, saying this is kind of foreign and I'm going to try to fight it for you. And that's a normal response. But an adverse response is you either ended up in the hospital, you ended up having to use an EpiPen and then to the hospital, or like I mentioned, within the 4 hours you had shortness of breath or a rash or wheezing.
All right, thank you. Let's see, I skipped a question, but we'll go back to it. Is there a central database that lists places where people can get vaccinated?
The state has a calendar now, so you can go on the state website, but that's usually hard to navigate. I think Tiffany, you might have that address. But we also have Nueces Knows with the county, their website. They actually post as well. We actually, with the city, we put out news releases with where we're going to be. But I'm going to say the best one that we have is the mall. And that's why I really love the mall location, because it's consistent. It's every day, Monday through Sunday. It's from 10 to 8 every day except on Sundays. And on Sundays, it's from 11 to 6 p.m. So you don't have to, scurry around trying to figure out where do they have vaccines and where is it free. It's right there at La Palmera Mall, right behind the big horse. That's P.F. Chang's. We're the building, we're the office right next to it, right? So come over and visit us and send family and friends over.
All right, it sounds really convenient.
It is.
Let's see, what advice do you have for those who are contemplating on not receiving the second dose of the vaccine?
Well, I think a lot of people ask me about, how many people have gotten COVID after they've been fully vaccinated. So you're going to see more people with COVID-19 if you've only received the first vaccine. With Moderna receiving one vaccine, it's around 70, maybe even 80% effective with one vaccine. But the recommendation is that you get both vaccines so you can get the full 95% protection. With Pfizer, the first vaccine is only about 50% effective to protect you against getting COVID-19. So it's like, a flip of a quarter. I might get it, I might not get it. So why did you waste your time getting the first vaccine if you weren't going to get the second one for the full 95% protection?
Okay, yeah, and I guess maybe this question is stemming from people hearing about the second dose is the one that, maybe makes more people feel sick after, but it's not for that long. And I found solace in knowing that it wasn't a real infection that was going to, make me sicker if, say, like, I fought through it and continued to try to live my life even though I didn't feel so well. Where, when you actually are contracting a virus, if you exert yourself too much, you might stay sick for longer. But with the vaccine, It seems to me that if you want to fight through it, you can, and it's not that big of a deal. And I guess I'm told that I had one of the more like strong immune responses, and it wasn't that big of a deal. So yeah, definitely, I recommend you get that second dose, and for all the reasons that Annette said, mainly that you get more protection.
I mean, if you're older like I am, I didn't get really any kind of an immune response like you did, Dr. Bird. I mean, I got heavy arm. My arm kind of hurt a little bit, like I had been punched by Rocky and he won. Other than that, I really didn't get anything. I didn't get fever. I didn't get chills. I didn't get any of those things. So, but I knew that I was fully vaccinated, so I felt so much better. I think everybody does. I think the only part that I have to keep reminding people about is even though you're fully vaccinated, that doesn't mean that your grandchildren or your children are vaccinated. So please don't forget them. They're part of you. Remember they need to wear their mask and they need to social distance from strangers and still do all those things until they have that protection.
Definitely. Let's see, now with cases fluctuating daily, what advice do you have for individuals who are testing positive?
They still need to make sure that they isolate for the 10 days, and they really need to be vigilant about doing that. I know a lot of people think that, there's not that many cases. I mean, what's my one case going to do? Your one case can still spread exponentially to other people that are vulnerable, especially the children. So isolate yourself for those 10 days. Isolate yourself from your children because you still don't want your children to pick it up. We still see family units. Now we're seeing daycares that have cases, 5 to 10 cases. And so you have to be very vigilant still about protecting yourself because we have the variants. We all know we have the B117. What we don't want to see here is the South African strain, the B1351, and that's because we know that it's more lethal, and we also know that the vaccines that we keep pushing, the Pfizer and the Moderna, are not as effective with the variants. And so that's why we're looking at boosters right now for Pfizer. They're also looking at boosters for Moderna because they want to be able to protect you against those variants. But variants, there would be no variants if there wasn't a virus that was transmitting all over the place. So try to keep it, with the isolation protocols for the good of everybody else, the rest of the community.
Yep. The fewer people that get infected, the fewer variants there will be, and the faster this is over. Let's see. This question's for myself, and then maybe if I don't answer it correctly, you can correct me, Annette. So why didn't we see a surge when the statewide mask mandate was lifted? Okay, I'm prepared for this question. We're going to try to get real fancy here, and I'm going to show a slide. So I believe everybody can see a slide now in the audience. And so what I want to point out here is that where you see the gray background on this figure, where that ends, that's when the mask mandate ended. So the first thing is that we do see what's that, Jason?
We aren't seeing anything.
You don't see it?
No.
All right. Well, even if you can't see the slide, there was an increase in the transmission rate that strongly correlated with the end of the mask mandate. So we went from below 1 to, somewhere slightly above 1, and now we're back down to being at 0.98. So there was an increase in the transmission rate. But the reason why it didn't spike up as high as it could have gone all the way up to 2, which would mean 2 people are getting infected for every 1 carrier of COVID-19. The reason why it didn't go that high is because a lot of people kept their masks on and didn't take them off. So just because there was the end of a mandate, it didn't mean that everybody took their masks off. And if you go to the store right now, or you go out in public, you'll see that more than 50% of people are still wearing their masks. So that's my basic answer there. You have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think to add to that, I think also in addition to that, people were already getting vaccinated. And so when you're vaccinating and you're vaccinating in a lot of different places, not just one location in a community, those people that are vaccinated also help, to keep the transmission rate a little lower. And so I think that was also part of that formula, if you will, that helped us, not spike. But that doesn't mean that a spike isn't coming. And that's where I'm more concerned. I'm more concerned with what we're seeing up north currently, because everything we see up north is like rain. Everything trickles down south. And so, and as we're seeing more people everybody's wanting their COVID-19 fully vaccinated card because they're wanting to travel. And as we see more people traveling, we know that we're going to get variants and that we could potentially have a spike here like we did last summer in June or July.
Okay, so I think that's all of our questions. Did we get any additional questions from the audience?
Here's one. As we look around the world and we see countries that have had their healthcare systems collapse, do you think the U.S. can get there too?
Well, I definitely think that the U.S. can get there. I mean, we're seeing, Michigan's not in good shape. Every state around Michigan is kind of scurrying around, trying to not see the spike in cases. And so that's the same for us. I mean, Michigan's only a flight away. And so, I mean, it sounds like it's very far away. It isn't. And so you see, all around the country, healthcare systems that are collapsing. And it could happen to us again here in June, and I don't want that to happen. So I really want to encourage people to please come get vaccinated. We're as convenient as we can be. We're fast. You're in and out. The longest part of it is the 15-minute wait, especially if you've already registered online. You bring your QR code, or we even have the QR right outside the door at Charming Charlie's, and you can screen right there as you walk around the mall and then come back to us. It's very, very quick.
What does it mean if a healthcare system collapses? What does that look like?
That means that they're not taking patients anymore. It's overburdened. So if you're having a heart attack, they're just sitting out there saying, can we take them to Houston? Does Houston have any availability? Is San Antonio? It's not a good picture. Unfortunately, we did not get to that point. But we were getting there, when we were peaking in July to 12,000 cases. You started seeing a few times where ambulances were on divert, which means that this hospital was too busy, try a different hospital, and then maybe come back. You were seeing paramedics telling patients that they were fine. They just needed to keep doing what they were doing and sit tight at home. It's one thing to sit tight at home if you're really not a full-blown COVID patient. It's a whole different thing if you're a full-blown COVID patient and you're needing to be on a ventilator, or if you just broke, had a compound fracture and you're not able to get any help because there's just no way. The hospital, that's overburdened. It's at its capacity. It's past its capacity. Because we've all seen the capacity of the hospitals. Thank God for the hospitals. Their capacity stretches. And it's stretched to its limit, and it's busted. And so there's no more. They can't do any more. They can't see one more person.
Okay, thank you. Tiffany?
Couple more questions.
Okay.
How come when you get a first shot vaccine, you can't go to any place that has the second one available?
You can, but everybody's different. So, and we've been trying to explain this to everybody since the beginning. We're public health. All the others are providers, and they don't do adult vaccines. That's usually the health department that does the majority of the vaccinations for the community. So a lot of times they think, well, you didn't come and get your first shot here. I can't give you your second shot. So that's just a little bit of confusion, but they absolutely could. But we'll give anybody their second vaccine and have their first vaccine anywhere else other than the health district. They just need to bring their vaccination card, because I want to make sure that we're giving you a Moderna if you need a Moderna, or we're giving you a Pfizer if you need a Pfizer.
And we have another question. With Pfizer allowing ages 16 and above, will you guys go to high schools to vaccinate?
Yes, actually, we're talking to the high schools right now because we need to vaccinate them as soon as possible because then school's going to be out. And so it might be a little bit harder for us to catch them when school's out. So we're actually polling all of the ISDs right now to find out how many they have and how many have consent to get vaccinated. 16 and 17-year-olds need parental consent, so we're trying to gather that up as quickly as we can and get them taken care of.
Any more questions from the audience?
I have a comment, is that right now the state is really pushing that if you have children that need vaccines for school, this is back to school vaccines, you need to get them now. So I'm sorry. Sorry about that. You need to get them now. It's not doomsday, though, that was just a light. But you need to get them now, and the reason being is because we're being told that we're going to have, hopefully, pediatric vaccine for COVID in the fall. And so we don't want you trying to get your back to school and your COVID-19 vaccines at the same time. So if you know your children need vaccines for next school year, we're going to open up at the health district so that way we can get you taken care of. To try to plan on vaccinating your children now, so later on when the COVID vaccine does arrive for the pediatric population, you'll be able to get it without worrying about the 2 weeks, the 14 days that they were vaccinated.
And how long will the mall location be vaccinating?
We're going to be there as long as we need to be there. So, yeah, I know for a month for sure we paid the lease. So I expect to pay them next month's lease as well. So hopefully, at least another 4 or 5 months. As long as people are coming, we'll be there.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, we're at 30 minutes, so might be time to wrap this up. We have any more questions from the audience? Okay, Jason, you want to take us home?
Absolutely. I want to thank everyone for watching, especially if you submitted a question. In the Q&A, there's no Q without you. To that point, please share this with your friends. There's no telling who you might help by sharing information. The next task force report will be uploaded this afternoon to social media. Please join us every Friday at noon for the question and answer session. Please remember to direct questions or comments to @CBCovid on social media, and have a wonderful and very safe weekend.
Thank you.